abusivefathers.com.
Welcome to the Brave Fathers Show. And now, the prophecy.
Right. Let's talk about cheating wives. Let's talk about paternity fraud. Let's talk about abusive, lying girlfriends. My name is John Paul from bravefathers.com. And today I want to address a very important topic. And the reason why I want to address it is I'm noticing another pattern, or rather, I am understanding a pattern that was confusing me for a long time. And it's only today that it started to hit me how it works and how pervasive this pattern is in our society. And what I'm referring to is a pattern of allowing females to basically do what they want, to take advantage of men, to disrespect men, to use men, to hurt men, and to get away with it. Now, at first, I thought, I was imagining things. There were many theories that I had that I couldn't substantiate. But then I started looking deeper into it. And I was doing another project, right? One of my publishing projects. And I came across some psychographic information, if you will, about how females communicate online, right? So certain target markets. And it didn't occur to me that it's more or less official policy on female run forums and discussion groups online, that it's more or less official policy that you cannot put women down, right? Now, you might think on one hand that's a good thing, right? Because why should we be putting people down? Why should we be putting women down? Why should we be disrespecting people or just, saying negative things about them? So on the surface, it makes sense. But when you look deeper into it, what it really means is that you are not allowed to make any negative comments about women. So even if a criticism is valid, it will not be accepted as a valid criticism. It will be seen as you're tearing down the female. And what's interesting is that this includes things like, let's say, wellness. So let's say if a female is overweight and you make a comment about that, I think it's common knowledge now that that's going to be seen in a negative light. But interestingly enough, even if the female, starts to lose weight and you comment on like, oh, wow, you're losing weight, that's a good thing, that will still be seen as a bad thing. And I'll tie it all together in a moment, but it's important that you realize that. And the reason why it will be seen as a bad thing that you're complimenting the female who lost weight, that she's doing a good thing, is because by implication, it means that the ones who are not losing weight, the ones who are not making the effort, that you are saying something bad about them, right? That you are not giving them that positive energy. And the reason why this is important is that we've come to a stage in our society where we are almost giving females the license to do whatever they want, to commit crimes, to steal, to lie, to cheat, to be violent with no repercussions. Because when you make comments that are valid, that criticize those behaviors towards females, they'll be seen as negative. They'll be seen as you are tearing that woman down or you are putting that woman down. Now, let's look at cheating, women who cheat. You probably have noticed that when a woman cheats, the society makes an excuse for that woman. Oh, she was not happy. Oh, she was not fulfilled in her relationship. Oh, she got married too young. Oh, she was going through stress. There's always some kind of excuse being made to allow that female to carry on with a wrongful behavior towards the male. When the male does the wrong thing, of course, he gets a lot of backlash for it. Now, I'm not against the males getting backlash for negative behaviors, and I am also for females getting that negative backlash, which at some point in time I believe we used to have in our society. You see, none of this would really matter if it was restricted to what we talk about on social media. If it was just memes, just discussions, just people arguing and being silly with each other and females get the upper hand. I'm fine with that because it's not that important, it's not that deep. Unfortunately, that's not where it ends. It seeps all the way to our bank accounts, to our personal lives, our reputations, the family courts, of course, the relationships we have with our children. All this is affected. And unfortunately, I cannot even blame just feminists for that. I cannot do that. Because I've noticed another trend which is increasing, which is males increasingly being proud on how permissive they are with their daughters. Even the notorious Mr. Tate, he himself has said he's permissive with his daughter, which I think is quite weak and is quite harmful to the child because I don't believe in permissiveness with children. I believe in clear boundaries and let them roam free within those boundaries and expound the boundaries as they grow older until the world becomes their oyster and they get to do what they want to do, how they want to do it. Because at that point, they will be adults. But as long as they're in your care, there must be some kind of boundary. So now, if we have the climate where females are not criticized for their behavior, and when I say criticize, I don't mean bitching and complaining about females on the internet because that does not really solve the problem. What I mean is when we actually don't address it as a reality, it becomes a problem because the same fathers who are permissive to their daughters will also excuse their cheating behaviors. As many believe wrongly that their daughters would not cheat. And many females think they are entitled to cheating. And frankly, if they want to cheat, I am not one to stop an adult man or woman from cheating. I don't condone cheating. I'm not for cheating. I don't think it's a good thing to do. At the same time, I think the better thing to do is for males to learn to be able to walk away from such females and to very quickly be able to discern when they are being lied to. I think that's better because if she's gonna cheat, she's gonna cheat. Listen, human beings cannot be controlled. No matter what, the red pill says or the feminists say or the church says, psychiatrist, your therapist, your best friend. No matter what I say, we cannot control people. People will do what people want to do. That's just the reality that we live in. So I don't think it's productive to spend a lot of time and energy trying to stop women from cheating or worrying about how they'll cheat, why they cheat. I think if women knew that there are consequences, they would be less likely to cheat. And what should those consequences be? An immediate end of that relationship on which they are cheating. And I say this because working with fathers, I've noticed that many are too forgiving. They're not forgiving of themselves, but they are forgiving of the female. And the reason why that matters is that you have to understand that when someone decides to cheat on you, that person makes a wager, they make a bet. Look, I either don't cheat and put the effort and energy into my relationship, or I cheat and risk losing that relationship, risk being found out, and investing their time, their focus on that person. It was a conscious decision. You know, there used to be a meme not so long ago where it says, "What if you cheated by accident?" I love it because it infuriated a lot of people and created a big discussion around the topic. But you see, the problem with cheating is bigger than just hurting people's feelings. Because a lot of times, the female gets pregnant when she cheats. She gets pregnant. So when she gets pregnant and she's in a committed relationship and she lies about it, then her official boyfriend or husband will end up having to take care of a child without knowing that that's not his child. Some advocate for mandatory paternity tests at birth. I'm not so against the idea. I would argue that these tests should be done as soon as it's safe to do those tests. And I don't know, I just think that by the third month of the pregnancy, the test can be done. And I think it's a good idea to do it early, as quickly as possible. I think the sooner it's done, the better for everybody, including the child. Because if the child is not the man's child, and he can then make a decision of how he's going to proceed, of course. But I doubt our society will take us in that direction. Although I'm hearing in some states, in some places, that choice is being made right now. I'll have to confirm. So I'm not going to speak, but let me write this down because I have to confirm. This is a topic I really want to jump into a bit more over the next few weeks. Because I looked at some of the statistics in the United Kingdom, right? And apparently we've had only one prosecution for paternity fraud over the past, 20, 30 years? But there has been quite a few cases where the female deliberately misled a man into thinking that that's his child and siphoned money out of him. And because of the political situation, it's almost unheard of. Well, we had one prosecution that a female will have any consequences for that. And we also have the problem with other kind of lies associated with cheating, right? Because when you cheat, you have to sneak out, you have to lie about where you've been, who you've been with, what you were doing, how you spent your money. Know that you need to give a daily account, but there'll be some inconsistencies. So the cheating woman will have to deceive the man and lie to him about what she did so that she can do her cheating. So here's the question though. Why do men accept it so much? Why do we allow this behavior? I saw a post where on X, I think it was copied from Reddit, where a male spoke about how a female put hands on him for the first time, where she hit him. She slapped him because he lost some money. And so many people supported that. They say he deserved a slap, which maybe he did. I'm not going to argue whether he did or he did not deserve a slap. But whatever the punishment was, it wasn't the female's right to execute it. It wasn't her right to hit him in the face. Surely nobody would accept it if the roles were reversed, and the whole argument of men are stronger doesn't hold, because when somebody hits you, it still hurts. If a man weaker than me hits me, I'll still be hurting. If I hit a man who's stronger than me, he will still feel the pain of that punch or that strike. So it's not right for us to make the argument because it doesn't matter. If we are adults, we need to be held accountable. So the question is, why do we allow this behavior? Because in many cases that I've looked at, and I'll be frank, even in my case, I could see things, and I can still see things, I'm talking of myself now, that I allowed, that I accepted that were wrong. And the reason why I did it was because, one, I thought they would pass. Two, I thought, I'm not gonna lie. At the time, I was scared to go on my own for some reason. I went into this psychological state where I was essentially addicted to this person. You know, there's no point pretending or lying here because if I'm to help you, I need to be honest and truthful about my experience. So I was addicted. I was addicted to her. It was like how you get addicted to cigarettes or you get addicted to drugs or alcohol. That was my addiction. That was my addiction. And so when I started recovering, recognizing my behaviors, realizing that I was really harming myself. And it was strange because even then, my mind was so clouded, I wasn't sure if walking away was the right thing. And it's funny when people want to hurt my feelings online, they'll say, oh, that's why she left you, and so on and so forth. And the truth is, even if she did leave, that doesn't matter. But I had to leave. I made the move. Yes, she did make prior moves, but we ended up together. And then finally, I cut it off properly, like really did, because there was no other option for me and the children at the time. So I know why I did it. But I don't think everybody has the same reasons. And a lot of my reasons were influenced by society as well, because when I look back, I also used to excuse female behaviors because I thought, as a lot of us wrongly think, that if we love her enough, she will change. That the only reason why she's acting that way is because she doesn't have enough love. And if you show her that love, she will appreciate it. But the truth is, that's not how human beings even operate in the first place. Like, we want to believe it. And I think that's why a lot of us get hurt unnecessarily. Because we believe in a version of love that is not realistic. And essentially is based on the other people giving us approval and validation and liking us. And I'm not saying those things don't matter or are not nice to have, but that's not what love is based on. Love is based on how we feel about ourselves. And I say this because I remember a story, right? So there was this woman I was seeing years ago, and she told me she was divorced, right? So we met up, we met her, I think the same night we met, you know, we were in bed, and she told me she was divorced. And later, I found out she was still married. So we sort of cut it off, and she came back to me saying she was separated. But the truth is, I later found out she wasn't separated at all. Later, she was separated. Later. But at the time, she wasn't. And I say this because a lot of people don't realize, because of this rule that we cannot criticize females, that we are not allowed to talk about the wrongs that females do in our society. A lot of people don't realize how much women cheat. Because depending on where you look, whenever there are paternity tests, I think at least 40% are found not to be the father. Interestingly enough, some studies cite as low as 1%, others say 30, 40 and higher. So I think it depends on who makes the study. But I know people personally who everybody looks at the kid and is like, nah, that's not your kid. And sometimes it's not just because of not resembling the father, but sometimes it's like even racially, it's like nobody in your family has eyes this color. They look like they are from this country. Like I know people who look like they are from certain very specific countries, and they just look at like people from those countries look at them and think they are from that country, but the parents are not from those places, you know? So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I really want to dive into it. But what baffles me the most is the fact that men will accept these behaviors and that men don't believe that women lie, especially when it comes to their sexuality, who they are sleeping with, who they are dating. Guys, we need to stop. We need to really stop being so naive. I think I think we really need to stop being so naive. Like we've had about what? Almost 30 years, or at least 30 years of the World Wide Web being available to the public, right? We have had at least 2 decades where it is like really widely available, where most people have some kind of online access, some kind of online interaction. So we've had a lot of information shared that previously humans did not share. We know things about things that we didn't even know existed before the internet. So I think it's about time we actually started acting based on reality. Now, I'm not saying that all women cheat and all women lie, because that would not be true. I think most people who are somewhat attractive have cheated or attempted cheated or at least thought of cheating at some point, whether male or female. But we also have to understand that women get presented with a lot more opportunities than men are, because men are the ones who are proactive about it. We are the ones who make the approaches. So a female will get approached 10 times in a day. If she gets approached 10 times in a day, that's over 3,000 approaches in a year. Over 10 years, that's over 360,000. Sorry, 30,000, 36,000 approaches over a decade, right? So let's say a woman gets approached 36,000 times over a decade. Let's have it to make it easier, 18,000 times. So for a woman to resist all that, because surely within those approaches, there'll be some people that she'll be like, if I was single, right? But I'm thinking that with the new mentality where we are not allowed to call this behavior out, and again, I'm not talking about bitching online on the internet, but just being like, listen, I think my girlfriend is cheating on me. And their actions is, oh no, how can you say that about her? She loves you. Whereas if a man is suspected of cheating, it's okay to investigate, right? So if we start addressing this, I think it will cut down the cheating. But if we don't, I think it's just gonna be normal. I think really we are getting to a point in society where males are becoming subservient to women. Like I think it's becoming a reality that men are scared of their women. They are so scared of getting divorced. They are scared of family courts. They are scared of going against their wife or girlfriend or even female friends. And when you have that in a population, we have the feedback loop where this keeps happening, over and over again, and it seeps into our laws, because some of the new laws that they are trying to bring are just ridiculous, because the point of those laws is not to protect anybody, is to give women ultimate power over men, to scare men into submission, to blackmail men, to force men to do women's bidding. Because in certain sick minds, that is how the world should be. They actually believe that the world will be a good place. And some believe that once there was a society where men were just serving women. You see, we've come so far technology-wise, science-wise, art-wise, that people take for granted all the work that men do to uphold the society. We are so comfortable that our feelings are more important than facts. Now, this goes is this people always is the left. It's the left and the right, like all round. The conservatives, the Democrats, the Labour Party, the Tories, whoever. All of them have the same problem. I can't now say that it's just one side or one kind of political group or one kind of person. No, everybody gets into their feelings about things that are irrational. I'm not going to start mentioning them now because people will start reacting and go off topic. But I think maybe in another video. But everybody gets deranged about something. Feelings. And as men, if we allow our feelings to control us, then we lose all power, which is what we've done. I had an associate, and he told me of a story where he was in bed with a girl, and her boyfriend walked in. And she told him off. She screamed at him like, listen, like you didn't, why didn't you call me that you were coming? I've seen, I don't want to go too deep because I don't think people are ready, but I've seen women lie. Like, I don't think I should be mentioning some of this stuff today. I'll have to think about it. But I've seen some situations where they lie. In school, university, like, when there were single sex spaces, like women would sneak in guys all the time. They would sneak guys in. That was a thing. Girls would sneak guys into their homes whilst their parents were in. Lock the room. Like that's a thing. Like a lot of guys are not aware of how deep it is. And the same girl will be singing in the church choir on the next day, dressed in all white, looking all innocent, looking like she's a virgin, when she had like 4 or 5 orgasms through penetration the night before. That's why she's so joyful when she's singing. And you think, oh, she loves the Lord so much. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not saying that she doesn't love the Lord, but and people think, this is what gets me angry, where people think it's just a small selection of women who do that. And the reason why it gets me angry is that, you see, I don't agree with cheating, but I also don't agree with just criticizing women for enjoying sex, because it's hypocritical of us if we do it. And people say, oh, it's different for women, whatever. I cannot be authentic and say I accept that, because I don't. I know I've had, I always tend to have multiple partners. So and I'm talking about sex partners. So I cannot be hypocritical and say, oh, it's wrong for women to have more than one. But I'm honest about it. Like I'm telling you, I'm not afraid to tell a woman, the only one, and let her walk away if she's not done with that. Right? So that's my stand on that. At the same time, if you enter a monogamous relationship and you expect each other to be faithful, then that's what the terms of the relationship are. So if I tell a woman I'm gonna be faithful, I will be faithful. And I have been in long-term relationship where I was faithful. I've cheated a lot too in the past. I have. I have. Like, so I'm guilty of it as well. Like, now that I think about it, this is crazy. Like, I have cheated as well in the past because at a point in time, I was afraid to say the truth that I wanted multiple women. So I thought I had to lie to pretend about it until I grew older and I realized, look, I'm not going to be pretending. I'm not going to be somebody who I'm not. So it's interesting as I'm making this program today, realizing that I myself have not been as innocent as I'd like to think I have been, because I've cheated a lot. I've cheated a lot. I've cheated a lot. I have been faithful too, but I've also cheated in other relationships. And there's been times where I rejected women not because I didn't want them, but because I was in a relationship. So I wouldn't want to cross that line. Let me have a bit of my drink. So what do you think? Make sure you put a comment. Make sure you put a comment if you disagree. Put a comment if you agree. Share your experience. Share your experience with me. So I was looking at the stats on paternity testing, and I was really, really surprised. I was really surprised at the number of um, people who found out they're not the father. I remember there was this guy that I know, so I'm not going to mention his name. He's not a friend, he's just an acquaintance, but I know him. And he was on TV actually, on one of the TV shows. So that's how I know that many of those shows are real in that regard. I'm not saying all are, but in that case, he found out that the son wasn't his, that he'd been raising, he's worked, I think he worked like 2 or 3 jobs at one point to take care of this child. He definitely worked very hard. Like, he's known as a hard worker. And he broke down after finding out that that was not his son. And the son was like well into his 20s at the time, I believe. Right? So he was an adult already, but I can't remember why they did a test and he found out that's not his kid that he'd been raising all his life. They were still cool. He still loved the child because he's a good father. But it's crazy because we have in the States men going to jail for child support. Why don't women go to jail for stealing child support, for stealing somebody's life, for putting them into that kind of situation? And I find it so strange that females confidently say, I'm against paternity testing. I find it strange. I can understand why the many would be against it. I understand that. But I don't understand the nonchalance, the confidence, the arrogance of saying that no, they're against it. That just shows you how bad it is. But the point of this is not to then say, oh, women are bad, but it's to realize that the way you think about love and relationship might not be right. You know, when guys say they don't want to get married anymore, which I understand. Look, in this day and age, I'm not against marriage, but the institution of marriage, the government supervising your personal life and putting restraints and constraints on it, I'm not with it. I don't think marriage is what it used to be in the context of society that we have today. I really don't think it is. I don't think women have enough respect for men today to be wives. And I don't think our men respect themselves enough to have the authority of a husband. They want somebody who makes them feel good. Again, we're coming back to those feelings. Makes them feel cherished, loved, nourished. Like, no, no, that's not the purpose of a woman in your life. You need to be able to get that for yourself. You need to be able to stand on your own. You really need to be able to stand on your own. It's not easy. Look, being a man is not easy. That's why you must be respected because of what it takes. But we can't have a society where it's harder on us because we also want to accommodate females who don't want to do their part, but also we make it harder on ourselves by relying on females that you can't rely on, because you can't rely on anybody, especially on a female, to do what a man is supposed to do. Yes, there is a difference between us. We are not the same. I know we want to believe it. And people now say like, oh, this is old school, this is a new world. No, it's not. It's not. It's still the same as it was 50 years ago in that regard. What has changed is the societal structures and the intensity of the lies. Because now, like I said, you can't criticize female behavior, but that is not to say that the behaviors did not exist before, but they were curbed. And the same applies to men, because you cannot criticize male's weakness anymore. Male don't want to be seen as weak. We never do. But when we are weak, in the past, we used to have older guys. We used to have the guys in the barber shop. You used to have your friends, your boys make fun of you. And you got yourself into shape. You knew, if you break up with a girl and you're still crying 3 weeks later, there's something wrong. But now it's like, it's supposed to be normal. 3 months after, you're still crying. Like, why? And it's not like this woman worshipped the ground you walked on. That it's not like she really respected you. You see, so bringing it back to the cheating problem, we almost make it inevitable that the woman will cheat, because we place our happiness in women's hands. When I watch the debates, and I don't endorse Myron Gaines, I respect Myron for his work. I don't endorse him. He does make a lot of good points. And when he argues with some of these guys, it's sad because while I don't necessarily agree with Myron's approach, I know the guys arguing with him are completely on the wrong path. They're on the path to getting hurt. And the problem is that they may end up getting bitter about it, right? Because they stood for something that doesn't exist. And the problem is, because they want to prove men like Myron Gaines wrong, they go extra when it comes to trying to please females. When they go extra, when they trust these females with things they shouldn't trust them with. They go extra with placing their well-being in a female's hand, because they want to prove to themselves maybe, and to the world that females are, in general, what's it called? Sugar, spice, and everything nice. And the thing is, it's not even about females doing that. It's about human beings in general. We all disappoint people. I'm sorry about the people I have disappointed in my life because I've disappointed many people. It helps me to think about some of the things that I wish I followed through, that I did it. I do. If there's one regret I have, let's say, is over the past few years or decade, is not following through on certain things, not following through on some of my promises, even to myself. You see, so when I found myself in a certain situation, when I found myself in family court, yes, there are people in my life who hurt me. There are people who took advantage of me. But the worst hurt is the one that I perpetrated on myself. Does not excuse what other people did. It does not. But what I can actually control is what I do, how I behave, how I view things, how I apply myself to the problems that come my way, how I become the man that I so long to be. And I've realized when I look back, there was a time where when I said I would do something, I would always do it. And I slipped from that. And I hate to admit it, I really do. But I have to be honest with myself because I'm here to help people. So perhaps me being honest with myself will help you be honest with yourself too. Because that is the key to winning in all these situations, especially in family court. Because when you lie to yourself, you are more vulnerable than you need to be. You become so weakened because energy is spent on upholding the lie and then creating a delusion so that you can feel some sort of normal connection with the world. And it's difficult to be honest. It's painful. Like I feel shame talking about these things now, but I was thinking about it today a lot. I was like, there are certain things I should have just followed through. I should have just followed through, and that will have changed a lot of things in my life for the better. For the better. So perhaps if you find yourself with a cheating woman, you should also stop cheating yourself of joy in life by staying with her. The first time I broke up with a girl I really liked her. Like when I think back, I was like, I like this woman. Like she had a lot of qualities that I liked, but she wasn't the right woman for me. And has to realize that, to think that, but I cheated myself. And I can't even blame her fully for everything because I also failed. And the biggest failure I had was I didn't trust myself. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't have focus on what I really wanted. I didn't have that core foundational belief in myself as a man. So she couldn't rely on me. Not to excuse her part of what she did wrong, but I'm saying what I did wrong. And frankly, I relied on her too much on certain things, when it came to feeling good. And I was too needy. I mean, that was a big problem for me. Whew. So when I realized she was cheating on me, and she was cheating on me, and that was not even what made me break up with her. It's when I looked at myself and I looked at a friend who he had this girl, beautiful girl, and he was spending so much money on her, buying her jewelry and stuff. And she was just mistreating him. And I looked at him and I said, his girl is treating him very similar to the way mine is treating me. So if he looks that miserable, I must look just as miserable and miserly as he does. And my pride couldn't take it. I was like, nah, 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 that's not me. So I saw him, and like they say, birds of the same feathers flock together. So I said, if we are rolling together, oh my God, I remember when he started blaming me for all his problems in his life. I guess we're just clueless. Nonetheless, I broke up with the girl. And thinking back, she took it on the chin. She wasn't really that bothered. She wasn't happy about it, but she was like, all right. Like she just walked off. Later she wanted to come back, kind of. But now I realize that she probably went straight up to see somebody else that she wanted to see. Because she admitted to me she was seeing some guy. She said they were not doing anything, but I think she was lying. I knew the guy too. I knew him. And I remember he had this nice car that he just got from his parents. Yeah. And I remember walking in one time, and if she's watching this, she'll know it's her because one of her brother's friends was in, and that day she said she couldn't see me, but I came through anyway because we didn't live too far. And he was there. I was like, "What's he doing here?" He's like, "Oh, he just came to see me," because I knew her brother wasn't around, and I didn't see him doing anything but the way she stood close to him. You know. So that was my cheating girlfriend experience. But we broke up, and I've been on both sides, right? I've been with girls who had boyfriends. Like I said, there was this lady who told me she was divorced, later said separated, whatever. So I've been on both sides. And it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for me to do what I did. But I see that's the problem. When women do it, we are not allowed to acknowledge it, or you have to somehow sugarcoat it or qualify it. Everything has to be qualified to appease everybody's feelings. So at the end of the day, you've said nothing. And we can't continue that way. We can't continue that way. We can't. That's not how the world needs to be. So I'm gonna say a few things now that are just coming to me in my mind. You have a lot of choices to make in life. Every moment is a choice. Every moment is a choice. And if you avoid making certain hard choices, like walking away from women who are not right for you, like focusing on what you really want in life, not what society wants, what you think people would want, what you really want, and figuring out what you want for yourself and being honest with yourself about it. And if you don't choose to be who you want to be, who you really are, not who you think you should be, all those unmade choices will catch up with you at some point. And you have a backlog of choices that you didn't make or that way you made the wrong choice. They catch up with you. And when, like me, you end up in family court everything becomes exaggerated. Everything has more impact on you. Or something else in your life may happen and you realize what's on the line. And it's difficult to come out of that. It's very difficult. And the truth is, what you really want, you can have. The thing is, you can't have it right now. For a lot of things that you really want, right? You can't have them right away. You have to put in work over time, consistently. It will be boring work. It will be work that is not fun. Don't let anybody fool you. At some point, it's not going to be fun. If you want to be a chess player, you have to go through boring hours of chess. At some point, it gets boring because it gets repetitive, but you have to do it. You want to be a dancer, you want to be a brain surgeon, you want to be an engineer, an astronaut, an athlete, whoever you want to be. At some point, you're going to have to go through some kind of repetitive task. There is no alternative. At the same time, you need to follow your instinct and trust that there is things that are in your favor. You can't just believe that life is against you, because a lot of men today, I'm seeing that they think life is just against them. It's not true. And I used to think that way too. There's always something that you can do that is available to you, an opportunity. And you have to be willing to go for it and take it. But don't make the mistake of thinking that everybody really is willing to also enjoy it. The best example is, let's say, getting $1 million. People say they want $1 million, but do they? Are they willing to put in the work? You know, in most places, for most people, we can have what we want, even if our circumstances are horrible right now. Because once you get out, you can get out of the circumstances and then find a trajectory and make exponential gains. Not everything in life is linear. A lot of the things, sorry, my neck is a bit stiff. A lot of the things come to you in exponential gains, but those exponential gains come after you reach critical mass of doing the action that gets you there, right? Where you get the escape velocity. And as you keep going, your mentality is going to be different from the people around you. One example, when I wanted to release my first music album, and I saved all my money because I didn't have any other way of doing it. So looking back, I should have bought some nicer clothes, because I remember one of the girls that worked as a TV presenter, she was advising me that, look, if you get some nicer clothes, it will be easier to promote yourself. I didn't get that at the time. Now I understand, all this image branding thing that I didn't get at the time. But still, I needed to do the recordings. I needed to release the stuff because I was doing it on my own. So I couldn't go to many places that people were going. I couldn't go to parties. I couldn't drink when I wanted to drink or buy the clothes I wanted, because it was a choice. And that's how I was able to release the album. And it did quite well, because people say there's no money in music. They're crazy. Like, I remember eating some nice food with my friends, associates, and all from the music. And they were like, well, this music thing, when you do it right, it works. But it took a lot of repetition. And I'll be honest, at some point, I stopped following through. And because I was scared of the success that I was having, I wasn't prepared for it mentally. I think that's the thing that I'm trying to bring out. I don't know how. Like, when it comes to relationships and your life and yourself, you actually have to be prepared for the success as well. You can get so used to failing that you are uncomfortable when you're doing well, and then you sabotage yourself. You don't follow through on things. You don't follow through on things. So that's another choice that you didn't make for yourself. So you had a choice. You had a choice to succeed, right? There's guys who say, "Oh, girls who like me, I don't like them." That is not being successful. That's failing. You want the person who does not want you to want you. So you are always putting yourself in a position to fail. But that means you truly don't want yourself, because when you want yourself, you care about yourself, you love yourself, you're not thinking, oh, does she want me? You're focused on yourself. And then if you like a woman, you like her because of what she brings to your life and what you do together, not because she's something to attain. Not because she's something to attain. But the most important thing really is follow through on who you are. Find the good in yourself and trust that that's the real you. And all the things that you believe you can do, your talents, your skills, they are real. Your dreams, they are real. The good things you want to do, they are real. You have to prioritize them. And the negative things that you think, you have to learn to let them go. And you have to follow through and do it, because you can't do it. It takes perspective of time sometimes to realize how much you've got, how much you actually are rich, and you realize that everything is yours, even if your bank account doesn't say so, because that's the wrong measure you're looking at. It is a necessary measure, I'm not denying that, but that is not the foundation. That is not the foundation of you. And even with money, you'll be surprised that when you focus, the opportunities come. And sometimes they take time, but they do come to you. The same thing with relationships, you know? So this time we are talking about what? Cheating girlfriends, lying, abusive girlfriends, cheating wives, paternity fraud, all those things. Those things do happen. You cannot end up in a mind state where, even if it's happened to you, that's your definition of life. Because I've gone through horrific abuse as a man. I have. I don't want to qualify that or sugarcoat it or explain it. I have been abused as a man. And I regret putting myself in that situation for somebody to be able to take advantage of me to that degree. I'm not even angry with the person who did it or the people who did it, as much as it hurt. Like, I don't even care about that. It's the question is like, how and why did I allow myself to be that person who could be taken advantage of? Because there was no reason for that, other than perhaps the lessons that I got from it. And only time will tell whether the lessons were worth it, whether the cost I paid of my life with my life for somebody else's sadistic pleasure, whether it was worth it. I would argue it's not, but you make the best out of what happens next. You make the best out of what happens next. And people make fun of men being abused. You see, I know who I am. I know who I am. So whatever weakness that allowed me to be in that position, or the weakness that I entertained that put me in that position, or my own decisions that I put myself in that position I had, those were mine, right? At the same time, whatever was done with me, to me, is not a definition of me. It was a wrong turn, like when you're on the road and you say, oh, let's just turn this way. And then you went to the place where you shouldn't have gone, like when you watch a horror movie. It literally was that. you take a turn that you shouldn't have taken. But that does not mean that you shouldn't get back on the road and go where you're going once you make it out, and be grateful to God that you made it out. So that's what you've got to do. That's what you've got to do. You've got to find yourself. You've got to be grateful. You've got to be grateful for who you are. The fact that you're able to hear these words, to listen to me, that you have the power, the possibility of loving yourself, because that's the greatest gift you can have. And it's something that people today don't want to talk about. It's something that people today don't want to think about, like how important it is to love yourself. The lack of love for oneself is perhaps the biggest evil we can have, because that's when we go out and hurt other people too. And you can't love another person for them. What I mean is, you can't love somebody into loving themselves. You can teach a child how to love the child by loving the child. You give the child all the love you can, show them how special they are, how important the child is, so that they carry it into their adulthood. But you're teaching the child to love himself or herself. You cannot love your child into loving itself, but love your child so it knows what the love looks like, so it can recognize it in itself. And then love yourself so the child can see, oh, wow, this is how I could love myself too. They'll do it automatically. Children just copy. They just do it without knowing they are doing it. They will say, I don't like this. I don't want to do that. But if it's the only thing to do, they will do that because that's the only thing is there. I don't want to eat this broccoli, but they're hungry. They will eat the broccoli. So some of us didn't know how to love ourselves, and that made us vulnerable. That made us less effective as men, right? I hate this pretense like, oh, it doesn't mean you're less than a man. It doesn't matter if I was not less than a man. I was weak. I wasn't effective. I'm not here to be patted on the shoulder, made to feel good. I'm here to find answers, to find strength, to find the power and the love that I know God gave me and still gives me. But we have to learn to recognize it. And you have to find it in yourself, because sometimes it's so hard. Sometimes it's so hard to love yourself. It's so painful when you realize, oh my God, I was wrong to do this to myself. Whatever it is, right? We all have things that we realize we shouldn't have done. And then you still have to find it in your heart to forgive yourself. And it's difficult. It's one of the most difficult tasks we have as men. And it's important because if you don't do it, nobody will do it for you and the world will take advantage of you. because you will not know what you are worth. You will not know the true power that you have. Like I said, you can't always have things straight away. Sometimes it may take a year, 5 years, 10 years. In some things, a lifetime, but you have it. In the meantime, you have to be grateful for what you've got, and it's difficult. It's difficult. Even the richest guy, because people think the money makes a difference. It does help. I'm not gonna pretend it helps. But one thing you learn when you enter a financial difficulty, if you're honest with yourself, is that a lot of times we use the money to distract ourselves from reality. And some of the pain of not having money is that you can't get that feeding of the addiction. You can't get that high that you get, you know. So it's good to experience that too at some point, because you rise up from that and you learn from that. You understand what I'm saying? If you've ever had, let's say, walk into a club and you have like $10,000, which I know for some people is pocket change, but for a lot of people that's a lot of money, you know. And then another night all you have is $100, so 100 times less. But you don't need $10,000 to have fun in the club. You really don't. You think you do, but all you are really doing is putting pressure on your senses to distract yourself from reality. You're seeking that intense experience, that intensity, so you don't have to experience what is really going on. And that's how you hurt yourself. I say this to make this point. As a man, you have the power to create the life you want. You have to see yourself as the source of the life you want. You are the source from which all things come. So, woman, money, strength, help, you are the source of those things for yourself. It comes from you, not the other way around. So you have to first find it in yourself. And when you find it in yourself, you can create it in the world, outside. It starts in here, in your mind, in your heart. And then you bring it forth. That's how you move in the world. But remember, you have to act on the world. It's not magic where it just shows up in front of you, like, say, this candle. No. You think, you plan, you execute the plan. You want to build a house, you have to pay an architect, for example, right? To design the house. You pay an engineer to figure out how to build it. You pay people to build it. But it came from your idea. And the same way the architect thought of the house, that's how the house later becomes, if you approve of it. Or if you are the architect, then obviously then it's on your vision that it's built. But the point is, you are the source. You are the source. So when things are not coming to you, that means you're not going to the source. Because God made you the source. God gave you the power to create. So don't worry so much. Even though we talk about the topic because it's interesting, of cheating girlfriends, we will talk about the topic of lying and abusive girlfriends, cheating wives, and paternity fraud, because it is a fascinating topic. We will talk about that. But what's really important is you really concentrate on thinking and figuring out what kind of man you are, what kind of man you want to be, and what kind of relationship you want to have. Then you build that, you create that, And remember, you are the source of it. So if you've had the bad things, you are the source of it too. And the good things, you are the source. And it takes time sometimes to change directives, to change things. But you can do it, and you will do it. Trust yourself. I love you. My name is John Paul from bravefathers.com. If you need help with your UK family court case, if you are facing false allegations, if you just need someone to talk to, click on the link below to go to bravefathers.com. Thank you so much. I'll see you again next week. And remember, when in doubt, you are the truth. Bye.
BraveFathers.com